Hey guys, I'm Round 1 Fight, and this is my prediction of Season 11 of Death Battle. Now, we all know about Season 10. It's one of the, if not the, greatest Death Battle seasons out there. It's brought us modern masterpieces like Bill Cipher vs. Discord, Galactus vs. Unicron, Goku vs. Superman, Scooby-Doo vs. Courage the Cowardly Dog. I could go on. But, like other things, this sadly has come to an end. However, that does leave the future, namely the 11th season of the show. And like most other Death Battle YouTubers, I have taken it upon myself to predict what these episodes will be. We do not have much info on these, aside from the fact that this will most likely return to the Season 7, 8, and 9 styles of it, mainly being the series taking a break for a few months, coming back in something like March or May to, take a break, and then taking a break again sometime in the summer and coming back sometime in the fall. Mostly like your typical school schedule. This doesn't really give us much, but hey, it's better than nothing. So with that said, let's get into it. For the season premiere, I think it's more likely than not we'll get a hero-themed episode. Practically all of the premieres in Death Battle history have been hero-adjacent because why wouldn't they? Big episodes with big characters with big followings tends to bring in the big bucks, if you know what I mean. And this is mostly the case for pretty much every premiere. Miles Morales vs. Static and Ant-Man vs. the Atom took a comic aspect, and other examples would be something like cartoon-based popular heroes such as He-Man vs. Lion-O, hero-adjacent characters like Dante vs. Bayonetta, and master characters like Yoda vs. King Mickey. Of course, this isn't the case for everything, but I think it does make sense for heroic characters to enter the fray first. And that being said, I think let's turn to Yoda vs. Mickey for a good example, because I believe that the premiere of Season 11 should be Shifu vs. Splinter, Kung Fu Panda vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This one is incredibly popular in the community and of the team, and pretty much everybody would like to see it. So it's pretty obvious it's got the popularity to happen, but it's also got the backing. This fight has a lot of popularity just as a general idea, but also you could do tons with it in multiple aspects. From 3D, hopefully, to 2D, to hand-drawn. You could do a bunch of good stuff with the animation-wise and make it a really well-choreographed martial arts fight, along with it being relatively more grounded than the other fights these characters have, due to them being martial artists above all else. What's more, Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming out, apparently, in March, and that already puts it in close proximity to the premiere, but there's also the fact that both their franchises are just really popular nowadays. This would not only pull multiple views, but also appreciation for in a similar vein to Yoda vs. Mickey, assuming they go for a similar type of episode. Not much else to say, I just think it's a good pick. Following up that usually should be another hero episode, though in a different way. So in this case, I think the best choice would be Crypto versus Underdog, DC versus Underdog. Now, this fight has been a little bit debated in the past if it should happen due to Crypto being, la Superman status and all that crap. But personally, I think the idea in general should happen. And really, I think the way Super Pets showed off Crypto is the best choice for him being an episode, or more accurately, I think pulling from a single version of Crypto is the best overall choice, like in this case, Crypto from his early 2000s series, mainly because it's got the connections like normal Crypto and Underdog, but with more emphasis on cartoons and less emphasis on DC stats, and boom, you're done. Crypto himself is pretty popular recently due to his movie coming out, and Underdog would probably pull some views in the same way Popeye would. It's just a general idea I believe could work, especially since Death Battle nowadays hasn't really shown the fear of using old cartoon characters regardless of if they're not that popular, so to speak. So next, or just in general I think this will happen this year, is Eren Yeager versus Ken Kaneki, Attack on Titan versus Tokyo Ghoul. Yeah, I had this last year, but come on. You gotta admit this has a pretty good choice of happening regardless of the year. And this one kinda settled it once and for all that I think it's gonna happen. Not only has Attack on Titan recently finished, but you have to consider Attack on Titan is basically one of the most popular animes of all time, and not using its most popular and versus applicable character right after that feels like a bit of a waste. Sure, Optimus Prime from the Bayverse could be used as an option, but most people, at least from my perspective, don't really want that instead of his best option, Ken Kaneki. Not only is there the whole anime aspect, but also both stories being really excellent and having a great way to draw on fans with the potential, spectacle, music, animation, etc. Mostly because, well, this fight could go in a lot of areas that other anime episodes don't really do to most, just being high-tier cosmic fights, not more grounded versus like these two. So overall, I think it could be a pretty good, fun idea, and I think it's likely to happen. Coming up to that is another episode I think should happen this year, Luz vs. Anne, the Owl House vs. Amphibia. So this brings up an interesting question regarding the recent happening in Death Battle community, the Tournament of Champions. This was a tournament to decide what episode would be appearing in Season 11 of Death Battle, and the winner of it, Tom vs. Wily, obviously is going to be in my thing for this year. But this does bring up the question of if episodes slotted for the Tournament of Champions will happen this year. Of course, the Death Battle community has commented on this, essentially saying that should an episode be in the Tournament of Champions, it is not automatically disbarred from happening, just their consideration. Now, this does sort of lead into how later episodes in it, like Pennywise versus Freddy Krueger or Jack Skellington versus the Grinch, are less likely to happen due to them being brought up in the first place at the end of the year. It is possible they could be talking about them beforehand, but I highly doubt that. That being said, episodes that are earlier in the Tournament of Champions should be more likely to get an episode overall, like this one. This one was obviously one of the most popular ones in the first thing, going neck and neck with Korra Sensei versus Monokuma for a while now, and it's pretty popular in the community regardless of that. It's essentially the modern day Steven versus Star, Danny Phantom versus Jake Long, and it's got pretty good backing across all aspects, including in just general crossover potential. Both the music combinations could go fire in all aspects. The way Steven versus Star improved things for hand-drawn pixel episodes can make this have a fantastic animation. You could have passion project people working on the writing, etc. It's also likely to happen because both series have ended in recent memory, and with Gojo vs. Makima, it would make more sense to do it when the iron is hot rather than just wait forever for people to do it. Okay, after that one, for one of the recent comic book episodes, I think we can see Annihilus versus Larfleeze, Marvel versus DC. Essentially, with the comic fights nowadays, I think it's likely we'll start to see more passion projects for the big Unga Bunga cosmology debates, and this one is relatively one of the most popular ones as of late. Annihilus is a fantastic Vor villain, pun intended, and Larfleeze is one of the more underrated ones in Green Lanterns. So it is possible that they could do this, but it also, I think, has a higher chance due to how they treated Martian Manhunter versus Silver Surfer, considering both of them aren't exactly that popular nowadays, but it got made regardless. And featuring a villain cosmic fight is something we don't see that much nowadays, aside from something really big. This one has been pretty heavily stated to be one of the better comic fights nowadays, and I think more or less it does have a pretty good chance of happening regardless. After that, or somewhere else in the year, I do think it's likely we'll see a Scott Pilgrim episode. Scott Pilgrim himself has been requested to come to the show for a while now, especially after Ramona, by both the fans and the research team, along with the team in general, as all of them just really want to see Scott get an episode, and frankly, there's no reason why he shouldn't. He's got a movie, a game, a comic book line, all of which are incredibly popular in all aspects, and recently he got an anime, which has bolstered his popularity even more as a result, along with helped clear up some things versus-wise, so I think it's more likely than not we'll see Scott Pilgrim get an episode. As for who he's fighting, the three big options would be Nyota from Fooly Cooly or FLCL, or whatever you want to call it, Travis Touchdown from No More Heroes, and Beautiful Joe from... Beautiful Joe? I forgot what his franchise is named. Regardless, all of those are the most popular matches for Scott with the best legacy, connections overall, and really I think the best two options would be Nyota or Travis, then potentially doing Travis because of legacy, but I think they have stated in the past that they kind of missed the chance to do this one, so I wouldn't be surprised if Scott got in, it was versus Nyota, because that's an upcoming anime that should draw in multiple views. After that, I think it's likely we'll see Gwen Tennyson versus Adam Eve, Ben 10 versus Invincible. Due to Invincible coming back for Season 2, and Invincible being popular in general, I think it's pretty likely we'll see them again this year. It's been a while since Omni-Man's episode, and frankly, I think the best choice for them to bring in another Invincible character would be Adam Eve. She's not exactly related to spoilers that much in the same way Invincible or Battle Beast is, and her powers are pretty heavily developed already, so you don't really need to spoil too much for her. On top of her being pretty popular thanks to her special in the show and having good roles in the show. Gwen is obviously her biggest match, and Gwen, frankly, frankly, the idea has a lot of backing from both the team and the community, so it doesn't really seem like that much of a stretch they'll consider it for this year, considering in the cast they seem to love the idea, and that wasn't too long ago. On top of that, Ben 10 it's been a while since he's arrived on the show, and Gwen is likely the next character to show up. Vilgax versus Ridley can wait for a while. People keep arguing about Kevin 11, even though his best idea is absorbing man, it's not even close, and etc. But really, I think this is the best choice overall. In general, I just think this has a good chance to happen, mainly because of all the potential with the magic and the powers they have, but also the love the community has shown for this. Coming up next, I think it's likely we probably will see something like Perfect Cell versus Super Skrull, Dragon Ball versus Marvel. Yeah, we all know it's true. We'll get another Dragon Ball episode this year. It's the most popular anime of all time. It's going to happen regardless. However, most of the options I do not think will likely happen. It's too early to see Goku again, so it's likely not him. We just got Vegeta, so it's probably not him either. Gohan, I swear, do not make him fight Invincible. Regardless, Gohan's most popular and best option would be some Ultraman character I'm not that versed on, but it could be possible we could do that. But I think that a better option would be Perfect Cell. He's one of the most popular villains in the Dragon Ball canon, and he's more than ready enough to just show up and gain views, along with the fact that his best option, Super Skrull, brings in a niche comic book character the team could have a lot of fun with, on top of bringing more Fantastic Four reps to the show. The idea also has a lot of backing in the community, on top of it being not that hard to sell Super Skrull win, despite him, annihilating, and a variety of other aspects that I think just make this one likely to happen. For our next anime episode, despite me not wanting this to happen, I think it's likely we'll see Shigaraki versus Mahito, My Hero Academia versus Jujutsu Kaisen. This idea has been pretty popular in the community as of late thanks to the G1 blog and certain members pushing for it. And the main thing going for it is that My Hero it's been a while since they've gotten a rep, and Shigaraki is probably the most likely character to get one next, mainly due to his powers being pretty well developed. He's got a readily available opponent who you can just do now because currently he is not really in Jujutsu Kaisen, I don't think, at least in the manga. So spoilers or whatever aren't exactly that big of a deal. On top of the idea having a lot of good connections and power exchanges, and really just a good chance to bring in more popular animes, despite me not wanting this to happen because I'd rather not see Shigaraki on the show before All For One or other My Hero characters who deserve far more than that angsty child does. Gets everything handed to him on a silver platter. After that, I think it's likely we'll see something like Byleth versus the Traveler, Fire Emblem versus Genshin Impact. We already know the team likes Fire Emblem and has wanted to bring a character in for that for a while, and with Dimitri having done so versus Gus, I think it's more likely we'll see another character from it, most likely one of the more popular and readily known ones than Dimitri. Sure, you could do something like Edelgard versus Kylo Ren, but Byleth also works because I believe DJ Tiki on the Death Battle team has expressed his likeness for the matchup, And the Travelers from Genshin Impact, another series that the team has wanted to bring in for a while, including one that's very popular currently. So, all the stars aligning, I think this one could be a good video game episode, sword fight, magic clash, etc. Around this time, I think we'd be getting Tom versus Wily. It's like the middle of the year. This is what they did for Bill Cipher versus Discord, and Cole McGrath versus Alex Mercer. So, yeah, I think it should be in the latter parts of the year. Okay, so after that, and near the Halloween stuff, but not quite there yet, I think it's likely we'll see Sly Cooper versus Lupin III, PlayStation versus whatever Lupin III's from. Essentially, this idea has been around for a while, but recently, thanks to the Death Battle cast, a lot of people have warmed up to its happening again, including the team, who expressed a lot of interest in it becoming an episode. And really, I think it's a good choice to happen regardless. Sly Cooper is one of the most popular PlayStation characters, and Lupin III is pretty underrated, all things considered, and being the type of niche character Liam could go ham with, along with just make a really fun episode out of it due to their spy nature, them stealing their weapons, using all kinds of other stuff, and etc. Plus, for Sly Cooper versus Lupin, both of their anniversaries and general dates should fall into the October regions of the year, so all things considered, it's likely will fall in the later half of the years if it happens. Going into October, I think we will most likely see Joker versus Green Goblin, DC versus Marvel. There's obviously the comic aspect, but also the fact that this could pull in multiple views due to the fact that Joker has a new movie coming out. And Joker, it's high past time he returned to Death Battle. After Sweet Tooth, a bunch of people are pretty hungry for him to come back, and Green Goblin is honestly just the best option to do that. Junko has other options and is kind of just a crap idea all around. And really, he doesn't really have that much else. Green Goblin's just the best idea, all things considered. They should have fought in the original thing, and I think they'll have a good chance to fight this year. As far as the actual Halloween episode goes, I think that the most likely pick would be, surprisingly, Chucky versus Springtrap, Child's Play versus Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, this one might seem like a bit of an oddball pick, but I think all things considered, it should be fairly likely. Not only are both Chucky and Springtrap incredibly popular, just in general, but also nowadays because of their shows and movies coming out, but also the fact that really this idea has been pretty popular in the community for a while. Neither one has any other idea that really matches the same level of spectacle and potential of this one, save for a few that don't work as well in comparison. And both Chucky and Springtrap are just, in general, characters that have to appear on the show at some point. Chucky has Slappy, but I don't think the team would do that over this, considering Springtrap is, Five Nights at Freddy's, one of the most popular indie game franchises of all time. On top of this one likely having a chance, because I believe in Cineback actually found a picture of something that looked like it could be from Springtrap, and I think Chucky would be the most logical option if they were to bring him in, besides like Freddy Krueger or Bendy or something, but I don't think they'll waste either of them on Springtrap when Chucky's right there. Next, I'll go over a few episodes that I think are possible to have this year that I just didn't think should exclude or be in place of some other episodes. The three main ones being Ellie versus Clementine, The Last of Us versus The Walking Dead, Edward Cullen versus Legoshi, Twilight versus Beastars, and Bunny Rabbit versus Rogue, Archie Sonic versus Marvel. All of these ideas are, I'd want to say, fairly popular, except Edward versus Legoshi, but I'll get to that in a sec. Ellie vs. Clementine has been pretty popular just for years now, especially after the G1 blog dropped, and a zombie fight in the latter years does make sense from a general perspective. You could not only do multiple things with that in the same way Leon versus Frank was handled, but also the fact that The Walking Dead has a new movie/show thing coming out this year, and capitalizing on that with one of its biggest matches just feels like a general, smart option. Edward versus Legacy is in the same vein as that, because both of them are sort of niche Halloween-esque characters that you can have a lot of fun with due to the nature of the stories, the fan bases behind them, all the jokes you could use, the tracks, etc. And I think it's possible we could see something like that due to the more niche characters that Death Battle tends to use, which I can't predict for the life of me, but this one I generally hope it happens this year. And Bunny versus Rogue is because, in general, I think I've made this pretty popular amongst the community. I've met multiple people in the official Death Battle Discord who have loved the idea, and due to them, apparently the crew wants to bring Rogue in at some point for a, I suppose, redo over her crap episode in season 1. And really, Bunny is just the best option for her all around. And if you don't think so, you're crazy. For the penultimate episode, I think it's possible that we'll likely get a JoJo's matchup, but not in the same way you'd think. A lot of people are predicting Joker versus Giorno Giovanna due to the tarot card lineup in the trailer having the Fool, Death, the World, which are pretty obviously nods to these kinds of characters. Joker is literally like an archetype like that in his game. Death, because duh, and the World because Giorno is Dio's son, you know. Zawardo! That world guy. So I think that's possible, but I think sadly, the more likely option would be Senator Armstrong versus Funny Valentine, Metal Gear versus JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The team has expressed a lot of support for this when the Death Battle cast came out, on top of this being generally a very popular idea thanks to that cast, in the same vein as something like Sly versus Lupin or Gwen versus Eve. This one also has the added benefit of it being President's Day in the latter half of November, and the day we finally get a better president regardless. But if I had to pick, I think this one is more likely just generally because of the crew's likeness of it. And for the finale, I think it's likely that it'll be Bowser versus Eggman. Fill-in ideas tend to go hard as season finales, and I think it's more likely than not we'll see this over something like Simone versus Kyle Rayner. Mostly because this one has consistently been incredibly back for a season finale, sometimes on the same level as Galactus vs. Unicron, but with that done, this is left in its place to fill the shoes. Not only is it an incredibly popular video game boss match, but Mario and Sonic both are way overdue for an episode, and with both of them having multiple games to bring them back into popularity, both of them having blockbuster movies, new shows, and new media regardless, I think it's more likely than not we'll see these franchises show up, and while it's possible it could be Chaos versus Kyogre, I don't think they'll sacrifice that for Bowser versus Eggman, or do both, because we all know Death Battle doesn't like doing more than one of any video game franchise this season, unless it makes money, of course. But regardless, I think that's the most likely choice for the finale. Sorry if I seemed a little rushed or whatever, but that's the video. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next time for whatever projects I may do. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. And hey, I may make a video out of it. I'll see you whenever I can get the song for my premiere, and if I can't in time, I'll just make another premiere and save the one I originally intended for later. See you next time.